I was telling you I was thinking about having on, and I said I was going to have Steve Javie on, and you ran into tell that story because that was pretty funny.
It's funny. I go down to see out my great friend PJ Rumbus's house. We had dinner last night in Atlantic City and stayed over. And as we're trying to find a parking spot in front of his house in Seattle, a guy says, you can park behind us right over here. And it's PJ's neighbor.
Right.
So, and I had never really met him, so we got talking for a little bit, and I got talking about the radio show. And always says, you got to get Steve Javie on sometime. And I go, 11 o'clock tomorrow in about 12:30. So it was Fran and Rich Doherty. And apparently they're good friends with Steve, and they've told me nothing but great things about him.
Right, so we talked about having Steve on. Steve's been a great friend of the show, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. So let's go to the Barb's Harley-Davidson Sports Hotline and welcome into the locker room. He refereed in over 23 NBA Finals, officiated over 1,000 games. Let's welcome into the locker room, Steve Javie. What's up, Steve?
What's up, Billy? How's it going, Scott? Franny texted me about running into you guys, and I just asked him, what did you charge him for the parking space?
It was a good deal. Trust me.
It was a good deal. You gave him a beer, and he said he was happy.
Absolutely.
Steve, I know you're fond of Ocean City, and but you're in the middle of working right now. During the playoffs, have you had a chance to get down to Ocean City?
Sure, Billy, we have. As a matter of fact, I'm here right now. We've been doing some work at the house here, getting it done. And, it's always great to come here to the shore and just hang out and relax. And we're having a beautiful morning this morning, sitting out there with my cup of coffee. It doesn't get any better than this.
No, it doesn't. And I got to tell you, Ocean City, down the Jersey Shore is the place to be. It's a few degrees cooler. The wind's blowing a little bit at night, and it's just a great atmosphere. Steve.
No doubt about it. And he can still talk sports with you, Billy.
Right.
Steve, a few years back we had, and Scooter, I don't know if you remember this, a few years back we had that referee roundtable show that we did at Charlie's. And I just thought that was such a great time to have three great, nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. But Scooter made mention to this. You guys, Curry Frazier, Bob McElwee, we did this did this referee roundtable show. And he said, you three guys are the nicest guys, but you're always getting booed.
Billy, it's so funny. And I mean, all during my career, because being in sports, even if you're a referee, you're still a competitive guy. I mean, you get into sports because you like to compete. And I think most referees were in sports and they're competitive and so on. So we understand the fact that being a referee, people are not going to look at you as a normal person. Because if you told half the players in the NBA that Steve Javie was a nice guy, they turn around and just walk away and say, you got to be kidding me. This guy's such a jerk. But you know what? You have a job to do. You can't make everybody happy, and you just have to go out and try to be as fair as you can and make sure the game is played within the guidelines of the rules.
And talking about making it as fair as you can, I got to tell you, Steve, it seems like this year, I could be wrong, but it seems like this year there's been more missed bad calls and just frustrating calls. The officials have been under a lot of pressure from it. Seems, I guess they're doing a good job when both sides are complaining.
Yeah, Bill. Playoffs. The officiating becomes more. I guess you get people see the playoffs, so they're more critical. And of course, when you have your home team that is not playing up to their capabilities, then now you want to try to put the blame somewhere else. But There's always going to be people, just like in the game one of the finals, after the game one, there's the coach saying, well, we didn't get to the free throw. And there's jockeying back and forth. I remember when Phil Jackson and Pat Riley were in the finals, and after one game, if they lost, they'd always put it out there about the officiating, think it's going to affect the officiating. Believe me, the officials, the last thing they want to be is part of the story. They just want to get in and get out, and hopefully things go smoothly. Unfortunately, the nature of the business is there's always going to be controversy. There's always going to be people who disagree with the calls. And, of course, at the same time, we have to remember, officials especially, we miss plays every night. There's no doubt about it because it's just too quick of a game. And now when you go to replay review and you slow it down frame by frame, it's like, oh, my gosh.
And that's where you are, Steve. We have you on the show. You spent a long time as an NBA official, but now you're the rules analyst for the television broadcast on the ABC and ESPN. Does that present a problem? I mean, obviously you don't want to, when you're asked to evaluate a play or a call, you have to be cognizant of for both. I mean, you don't want to rip the officials all the time, but you also want to be accurate.
Yeah, there's no doubt, because I think obviously the credibility of the station and my credibility is at stake too. If there's something that is a mistake, I think it's just the way you point it out, Bill. I mean, it's not a matter of because anybody who is an announcer and color commentators, very rarely do you have them be able to point out in a nice way or an objective way. They just want to rip the guy. Like, how can he make that call? That really stinks. He shouldn't. Well, I try to look at it like, hey, okay, why did he miss the call? So if there is a call that I disagree with, or the day I felt they missed it, I look at it from, of course, a professional aspect of refereeing myself all those years. When I missed a call, I looked at why. And most of the time it's positioning. It's you're out of position, and then maybe possibly you guess on the play thinking you saw something. So if I can point that out to the viewers of like, well, look at this position or that position that the official had, and that's the reason why he made the call that he did. He didn't have that camera angle that was on top of the backboard that everybody else can see now in replay. Funny, the other night, Billy, there was a play, if you remember, if you've watched the game,
I watched.
Where Giannis was called for an offensive foul. The kid, Craig, really took a shot and took him out of the game. And I just like, oh, my gosh. And then when you watch it and you slow it down, if somebody challenged that, by rule, frame by frame, it was a blocking foul.
Right.
And that's the tough thing about replay and challenges. You don't referee the game via replay. You referee it in real time. Right. And that's in every sport. I mean, I even think of football before replay came in, how many balls do you think, how many touchdowns would they have brought back to the 1 foot line because, that knee just touched it, and let's see where the ball is. Unfortunately, the referees that are on the field or on the court, you have to referee in real time. Right. And I think that's where sometimes this replay gets a little out of hand because people want the game to be perfect. But then when you see that stuff, like Giannis, that was definitely an offensive foul. Right. But by rule, when you slowed it down frame by frame, you know what? If they challenged it, they'd probably have called it a block. So replay's good. And at the same time, it's like not realistic. It's like referees can't referee games in replay.
Right.
No, I agree with that.
Hey, Steve, you kind of led right into my first question was, do you think that the refereeing is maybe getting worse over the years, or is just replay exposing some of the human parts of it?
I think replay is exposing more. I look at the out-of-bounds plays like in the NBA. I always said, even when I was working, people would say, the block charge is a tough call, the toughest call. Yes, there's no doubt. But we would always say, people don't understand. Out-of-bounds calls are so difficult. The ball just shoots out. You have all these hands there. Yeah. And what you try to get is, in real time, that is the person you feel that caused it to go out. Now we're seeing that, he hits it to go out, but maybe it just touched that fingertip. So now that goes down as an incorrect call, and people say, how could he miss that?
Right.
So I don't think it's getting worse. I think, like you said, it's just getting exposed, the fact that how difficult these games are to officiate. And, yes, there are going to be missed calls, unfortunately.
We're talking with Steve Javie, former NBA official. Now he's the rules analyst for ESPN and ABC during the television broadcast. Steve, so let me ask you, what's the actual rule with charging? The defender the offender has to have the head and shoulders by the guy, and the defender has to be planted? Because I've been seeing, and I guess if you go back to replay, you'll see that these guys aren't planted, and they might not have the head or the shoulder by them.
Yeah, Billy, I think every situation's a little different. Now, on a drive, if an offensive player is driving to the basket, the defender must be in a legal guarding position prior to his upward motion. So if all of a sudden I'm going up and my ball, they say the ball and shoulders are above, the ball's above my head, and now a guy slides underneath.
Right. He
could take it in his chest and face, but he still wasn't there in time. But it doesn't mean you have to be stationary. Basketball is a moving game. Right. People are always moving. And the defender is allowed his area in which he can go. So he could still be moving, and the offensive guy can now, as you see, pushes off with his forearm or something. Well, it's okay. The defender's moving. It doesn't matter. If the offense causes that defender, obviously, to be dislodged from his position, it would be an offensive foul. So it's not really one. There is a rule of being in a legal guarding position, but the definition for legal guarding position differs from where you are in a court and how you're moving on the court.
So obviously that could be objective or subjective.
Yeah.
It's fluid. It's always
like
moving.
Anything.
Yeah,
sure.
Billy, without a doubt, I'll give you a little story, Billy. We used to go to the preseason referee meetings, and of course, the boss at the time would show you films, and they're trying to maybe let's say is stressing block and charge, and let's go over some block charge fouls from last year, and you would even show it in say replay, and like half the guys would raise their hand and say, "Who says it's a block?" Boom. Half the guys, half is a charge. So it is subjective of how you look at it and how you interpret it. So it's not really objective. Where if your foot's on the line, you're out of bounds.
So when you're Steve, when they go to you for replay and you're in the booth, so you're saying when you make it your opinion, it's just your opinion. The referee on the court.
Correct. It's right. Exactly. No, you're right, Billy. It's totally subjective to the person who's viewing it.
Right.
And you could have the same information. You could be the same, in the NBA, guys been in the league 10, 15, 20 years, and we could differ. I mean, it happened when I used to referee. We came in the locker room afterwards. We would watch our videotape, and I'd say, "What do you think, guys?" Some guys would say, "I think that's a block." Other guys, "No, I think it's a charge."
Right.
And
see, that's what's I guess
who's right and who's wrong.
And I don't want to say that's what's wrong with the game, but in a way, like there should be. I wish there could be
a clear cut
uniform thing. But like Steve just said, Scooter, in basketball, it's almost impossible.
Well, it is. But the game's faster too today.
How about this, Steve? How about the you know what drove me nuts, Scooter, this year? Steve, how about the pump fake? You saw Trae Young numerous times get the guys up off their feet, and when they're on their way down, lunging into them, not going to the basket, like almost going sideways and getting the call.
Yeah, I think you're going to see that addressed in the offseason. But what's happening, Billy, is that players are trying to do two things. Instead of trying to score, they're just trying to go to the line or fool the referee.
Right.
And once, players are so good. I mean, they'll change the rule. In my opinion, there will be a rule change with that. But then there's going to be something else that the player. It's always been that way. It's like the rules and competition committee is like chasing their tail. It's like the players will figure a way around the rule, and all of a sudden, okay, now we got to make another rule or another interpretation of the rule, whatever it may be. But that's how good the players are. This is their job. Their job is to score points, to try to win as much any way they can. And if that's circumventing a rule or using a rule to their advantage, coaches and players do that all the time.
Steve, it seems like there's a lot more complaining by these players today than I remember in the past. I mean, I grew up playing basketball my whole life, and it's like every single foul they're running over to the ref. Is it getting really harder for these guys, these current refs today, to really deal with all that?
Well, the first statement I'll say is the reason why the players are doing it is because they can. Okay, it's just like disciplining your children. The reason why the children get away with the things they get away with is because they can. You're allowing them to do it. I get frustrated myself at the replay center when I see the same thing as you guys do. Is like every call, and then of course you have these guys. They tell their coach, challenge it.
Yeah,
challenge
right. Yeah, they
and
point to the booth.
9 times out of 10, the guys fouled him, and I'm sitting there going, "How unrealistic are you guys? You just fouled him. I just saw it, and every time you're asking for him to challenge it." I think that it's funny. The coaches now know what guys they can trust on their team because I'm sure they've challenged, or I should say, I'm sure they trusted in this guy saying he didn't foul him. And then just like referees, we watched the tape, and now the guy's got no credibility whatsoever. But no, I think what happened, I think it's an extension of last year in the bubble. And I think for a number of reasons, they just allow them to complain more. And it's carried on this year. And I know at times it's really not fun to watch.
No.
You see bellyache, and I gotta be honest, Steve.
Every call, and it's like they're trying to tell the referee. It's like, I mean, I hate to say this, but I mean, it would be really, really difficult for me to officiate now because one of two things would happen. Most of the players wouldn't be in the game, or else they would fire me. Either one.
Well, we'll never fire you, Steve, because you're the best. I got to tell you, man, you're one of the nicest guys. And it's funny when Scooter said, "Yeah, you're always getting booed, but we'll never boo you here."
Thanks, Billy.
Hey, listen,
Scooter, I appreciate that.
Hey, listen, Steve. If you're up on the Ocean City Boardwalk on Saturday nights, bring Mary Ellen up to the boardwalk, have a stroll, and come visit me at the ramp booth right there at All Campus on the 1028 Boardwalk. Come on up, and we'll do a little TV spot maybe.
Sounds great, Billy. It really does. If I'm up there, I'll definitely stop by.
All right, Steve. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you on TV tomorrow night.
Always a pleasure to talk to you guys. Have a great rest of the weekend yourself, too.
There he is, Steve Javie. I'm telling you,
what a great guy.
He's just, I can't emphasize enough. Just like Bob McElwee, Curry Frazier, all cut out of the same cloth.
Yes, Paul Stewart.
Stewart.
Great guys that have great stories
and
are able to describe their job in detail.